Everyone always complains about RNG in Pokemon, especially when nuzlocking, so I fixed it. I completely removed randomness from Pokemon Emerald by making it so you always get the worst outcome possible. Let's see if I can be the hardcore Nuzlocke of this mod to definitively prove that losing to RNG is actually just a skill issue. To beat this challenge, I'll need the best of the best Nuzlocke encounters, so I obviously chose Mudkip as my starter. One minor issue, it only has Tackle and Tail Whip. Because of Tackle's 95 accuracy, it will always miss, so neither of those can deal any damage. This wasn't an issue against the uncatchable shiny Zigzagoon since it just ran away, but this would definitely be a problem going forward. You might say I should just pick another starter, but I was determined to do this with Mudkip, so I started the slow process of saving, wasting a move, resetting when getting damaged, and saving again if not. This way, Mudkip eventually ran out of PP, letting me use the 100% accurate struggle to get to level 6 and learn Mud Slap. This still didn't make grinding easy though. Every Pokemon has a random individual value for each stat, ranging from 0 to 31 impacting how good it is, and for mine these are of course all set to 0. Combine that with my moves always doing the minimal potential damage with the opposite for the opponent, whose moves also always deal double damage because of critical hits, and I was only barely able to 1v1 the weakest of level 2 Poochyena. Altogether it took over 40 minutes to finally learn a decent move, Water Gun. With this, and a slight level advantage, I could take down the rival's Trico, unlocking Pokeballs. However, you may have noticed that all wild Pokemon so far have been shiny, which is normally incredibly unlikely. This is because with just regular Pokeballs and no good way to increase the catch rate, it's impossible for me to catch anything right now. That's quite an issue, because in a Nuzlocke you can only catch the first Pokemon you find per route, meaning I always miss out on my Route 102 encounter. That's not even the worst part about this route though, that is Tiana. Her Zigzagoon is no issue, but her second Pokemon? I can confidently say that Shroomish is the mortal enemy of this challenge. Absorb dealt a shit ton of damage against my water type while also healing a bunch of HP, so Mudkip died and I was forced to move on to attempt 2. 30 minutes later I got back to the same point with the amazing strategy of just not battling her, so I safely arrived in Paddleburg City. Here I could buy repels to avoid wild encounters until I got better Pokeballs. Before I got there though, I had to battle the Aqua Grunt in Paddleburg Woods, and his team is a major issue. It's even scarier than in Romhack such as Run and Bun, because although it just has one Poochyena, it has Sand Attack. If my accuracy gets lowered, there is no way to land any attacks anymore, meaning an instant loss. To play around that, I had to grind Mudkip all the way to the level cap of 15, so with a 50% boost to water moves because of the Torrent ability, Water Gun was just barely a one-shot. This got me the one Great Ball available before Roxanne, which I always reserved for my Paddleburg Woods encounter. I ended up finding a Shroomish, which in yellow HP was a guaranteed catch, so that's my second team member. With that in the back, I challenged the first gym leader, Roxanne. Mudkip's Water Gun easily one-shot both Geodude, but Nosepass was a different story. The water move only dealt around a third of its health, while a critical Rock Tomb already brought me down to 9 HP. The equipped Oranberry helped a bit by healing back 10 HP, but 2 tackles still easily took care of my starter Pokemon. Although Shroomish managed to finish the job with Absorb, it was not worth continuing this attempt without Mudkip. However, I did learn that at level 16, Shroomish gets Mega Drain. So after getting another Shroomish as my Paddleburg Woods encounter in attempt 3, I led with that against Roxanne instead. Taking down the Geodude let me learn Mega Drain, and with Nosepass never using Rock Tomb, I could use my newly learned move to outdamage it, finally getting me the first badge after almost 3 hours. That victory was short-lived though, because on the next route I ran into Youngster Johnson, who had a Shroomish. Despite the absurd level advantage, I stood no chance due to Stun Spore paralyzing my own Shroomish. Since that usually means a 1 in 4 chance of not being able to move, I was now not being able to move at all, and my newly evolved Marshtomp was no help either. Time for attempt 4. I managed to avoid the opposing Shroomish, but unfortunately also the wild one, getting Tailo as my Paddleburg Woods encounter instead. This presented 2 issues. I didn't have Shroomish to beat Roxanne, and even catching Talo wasn't trivial because Water Gun would one-shot it. Luckily, both problems had the same solution: Bide. This unique move lets you take hits for 2 turns and then return double the damage taken. This perfectly weakened Talo, so with that caught, I moved on to challenge Roxanne once again. The first 2 Geodude were still just one shots with Water Gun, but since we knew that wasn't enough for Nosepass, I used Bide. One Rock Tomb already did massive damage, but because it also dropped my speed, and the AI doesn't like going for speed dropping moves against slower Pokemon, it simply wasted the next 2 turns with Block and Harden, after which Bite dealt 60 damage for a clean one-shot. Slowly but surely I was learning from my past mistakes, now using Talo to take care of the onslaught of Shroomish while equipping Cherry Berries to heal the guaranteed paralysis from Effect Spore. After destroying the Aqua Grunt in Russerf Tunnel, I could use Briney's boat to go to Slateport City, meaning I finally had access to a Pokemart with Great Balls. Unfortunately, it didn't help a lot this attempt since I still failed quite a few encounters and ended up wiping to a double battle in the Fighting Gym. Attempt 5 was doomed to fail when my Paddleberg Woods encounter got rolled to be a Cascoon, which is even too hard to catch with a Great Ball, so let's not waste any more words on that and go to attempt 6. This time I found a Shroomish, but it killed my Mudkip, forcing me to go to attempt 7. At this point, I just used a save state right before the Paddleberg Woods encounter since the part before that doesn't change at all, so I immediately had another shot at catching something and managed to successfully add a Poochyena to the team. This wouldn't help against the Shroomish on Route 116, but I had gotten decent enough at using a speedrun trick to dodge trainers, so I made it out of that hell unscathed. And yes, I didn't mention Roxanne. That's because Bite completely trivializes the Nosepass, and even though that's incredibly funny to me, it's not worth talking about in every run. And trust me, there will be more runs. Anyways, I used my second Great Ball, which I got after being the Aqua Grunt in Russerf Tunnel, to catch a Wurmple on Route 104, which evolved into a Beautifly. This wasn't just really helpful against Brawly, it also let me beat the back-to-back Aqua Grunts in the Slateport Museum. This might seem unimportant, and it usually is, but it actually triggers something that's incredibly useful for this challenge: access to Repeat Balls and Timer Balls. The latter basically lets me get a 4x catch modifier for any encounter, while for comparison, a Great Ball only increases the catch rate by 1.5. This allowed me to finally get a full team of 6, but you might see a strange absence of Magikarp and Tentacool. That's because in this mod, fishing never results in a bite. Tough luck. Not that I needed those for Brawly though. Beautifly's 4x resistance to fighting moves made it the perfect counter to his team, especially with a super effective Gust for offense. Not even his Ace Makuhita stood a chance, so that's an easy second badge. The next boss fight is a Route 110 rifle battle, but Grovyle is no match for my onslaught of flying types, so let's quickly move on before this video turns out to be an hour long. I caught some more encounters, evolved a few Pokemon, and immediately overleveled 2 of them. This meant I was left with a ragtag team of Pokemon, where only Marshtomp had a decent matchup against the Electric Gym. Speaking of the devil, let's talk about Watson. His team is the worst, in the bad way. Voltorb had Spark to always paralyze me and Self-Destruct to deal insane amounts of damage, so while trying to play around both of those at once, I already lost 2 of my 5 Pokemon. Next up was Electrike, whose only really annoying part was its ability Static, which paralyzes my Pokemon if I hit it with a contact move. That was at least no issue when using Marshtomp's Mud Slap, but a critical quick attack still did some decent damage with an attack boost and defense drop. Once that was down, Magneton came out next. This is easily Watson's most frustrating Pokemon since it can inflict both paralysis and confusion, which always results in your Pokemon hitting themselves. Luckily, it only ended up using Sonic Boom, leaving Marshtomp at 8 HP when the second Mud Slap took down the Electric Steel type. Last up was Manectric, and although Magneton was the most frustrating Pokemon, this is by far Watson's scariest one. My only electric immunity was already chipped down quite a bit, but then my other Pokemon would have to take either monstrous shockwaves or get paralyzed by Thunder Wave. Even ignoring that, Manectric also had Static, so most Pokemon wouldn't be able to get multiple hits off either way, so yeah, this was not the run. In attempt 8 I ran into an optional trainer, and the additional experience meant that Marshtomp would miss out on Mudshot, which might be important, so I reset and moved on to attempt 9. Where I lost my Paddleberg Woods encounter against the Slateport Museum Aqua Grunts. With the upcoming Brawly fight in mind, I decided to reset once again, getting my attempt count into the double digits. Within 3 minutes of the next stream, I had already reset over 3 attempts because of uncatchable or wasted encounters, and those were by far not the only screw-ups in that stream. Accidentally killing my encounters, finding Sealcoon or Cascoon in Paddleberg Woods, and killing encounters once again resulted in a record of 4 resets within 2 minutes. I then lost 2 attempts in a row because of running into option trainers, lost my real fight to the Slayboard Museum Aquagrunts for the second time, got destroyed by a Shroomish encounter, got destroyed by a trainer Shroomish, and found another Sealcoon in Paddleberg Woods. Whew. I can't believe I did that take that fast. That was not sped up. Anyways, that was 13 lost attempts in less than a minute of the video, so let's slow down a bit and take a closer look at attempt 23. It already had a good start with a Wurmple as my Paddleberg Woods encounter, and since I was now using rare candies, I could easily evolve that into a Dustox. Instead of risking this in the Slayport Museum, I realized that I could just use it to immediately beat Brawly. Dustox easily 1v1s his lead Machop, and to gain experience lets it learn Moonlight. Quad resisting fighting moves and being able to heal off those small bits of damage made this fight a breeze, and with Brawly defeated, I could get my Pokemon up to a maximum of level 24. Level 21 was already enough to safely beat the Aquagrunts, giving me access to Diamond Balls, so let's get some Pokemon. Whismur, Poochyena, Meryl, Tailo, Makuhita, and Electrike all got swiftly added to the roster. I didn't have Golbat for the rival fight this time, since I used to Repel by leading with a level 9 Pokemon to force either Makuhita or Geodude in Granite Cave, but Moonlight Poison Sting Dustox was a decent enough substitute to let me get through the battle unscathed, is what I would have said if Wingull didn't outspeed and body Loudred with devastating critical water guns. At least there was one more encounter to replace Loudred, which was Illumise, and this is actually amazing for against Watson. I led with it against Voltorb, but that was only so after safely switching into Marshtomp on a Shockwave and then into Hariyama on a rollout to get the kill with Vital Throw, Illumise leveled up and learned Encore. Hariyama easily took down Electrike as well, although Static did make Hariyama use his health Cherry Berry, and then it was time for Illumise to shine against Magneton. After pivoting through Marshtomp, I brought in Illumise on a Sonic Boom and used Encore to force Magneton to keep using that move. While it did that, I could freely use Sweet Scent, bet you've never seen that move used before, to lower their evasiveness. It was then time to go back into Marshtomp, and instead of using the 20 base power Mud Slap, I could guaranteed connect with the 55 base power Mud Shot despite its 95 accuracy to get the one shot. This left just Manectric with still my entire team in amazing shape, so... well, shit. I thought I was well prepared with Thunderwave, Leer, Electrike as support, but instead of just sacking that for a free switch, I hard swapped to Illumise just for it to die to a Shockwave before it could use Sweet Scent. This meant that Marshtomp did pathetic damage with Mud Slap, and since Hariyama's Cherry Berry was already used up, that was useless as well, so that's the second Manectric sweep of the challenge. 13 garbage attempts just to finally make it back to Watson and get embarrassed once again. How could I possibly bounce back from that? Well, by immediately getting back to the third gym on the next run. On this attempt I caught a Wurmple, evolved it into Beautifly, defeated Brawly, beat up the Aquagrunts, and then got some very interesting encounters. A Minun with Thunderwave and Encore, an Oddish with Sweet Scent, and a Nincada. This can evolve into Shedinja, which has the ability Wonder Guard, so it only takes damage from super effective moves. That means the only ways for it to die against Watson is by Voltorb's rollout or hitting itself in Confusion because of Magneton's Supersonic. Sure, it would be used just offensively because of paralysis, but together with Marshtomp it can easily PP cell the electric types to make this a free fight. Which is why I banned it. I don't play these challenges just to win. I do this to find unique and satisfying strategies to beat original challenges, and after getting embarrassed by Watson twice, I wasn't just gonna cheese the fight, there would be no satisfaction in that. Instead, I use strategies like pre-sleeping my Pokemon to avoid getting paralyzed while making sure they wake up immediately so I don't get any drawbacks. That's why I play these challenges. So, let's see if that paid off. This time I simply led with Marshtomp to immediately bait rollout, and because I EV trained for almost an hour, Hariyama was strong enough to one-shot Voltorb with Vital Throw. Instead of wasting Hariyama's Cherry Berry like last time, I decided to sacrifice some of Marshtomp's HP to then knock out Electric with Mud Slap, bringing in Magneton. Although Minun didn't have Sweet Scent, it did have Thunder Wave to paralyze Magneton, so now that Marshtomp was faster than it could do-shot the Electric Steel type with Mud Slap while only losing 10 HP in the process. So now, Manectric. This time I had Minun to paralyze it, and then used Sweet Scent with Gloom so Marshtomp could land a Mud Shot, which didn't do nearly as much damage as I would have liked. One more mud shot put Watson's last Pokemon into yellow HP, and I had a big decision to make. With all of Manectric's attack boosts, a critical quick attack would guaranteed finish off Marshtomp, and Swampert is the best starter of Ho-1 for a reason, so I didn't want to lose it here. But if I switched out and Watson used a Super Potion, my chances of winning were basically zero. Although my intuition told me Watson would heal here, I didn't want to take any risks. I literally spent 10 minutes to go over damage calcs to see how much damage I did, which I can perfectly pinpoint because I always do minimal damage, and then looking at the actual game code to see if at that amount of HP, Watson would actually heal. The results? Watson should never heal here. So I switched and he healed. In my calculations, I had forgotten about the fact that the second badge increases the damage of your physical attacks by 10%, and that additional damage was just enough to knock Manectric into healing range, making me lose to Watson for the third time. There wasn't much I could do except just moving on, but at least attempt 25 was a nice change of pace because my Paddleberg Woods encounter was a Slack Off, which has Yawn. With this, I could catch multiple Pokemon before the first gym, but then I lost 2 Pokemon against Brawly, so I decided to reset. Run 26 had an even worse matchup against fighting types, so I didn't even try it that time, and my next Paddleberg Woods encounter was Silcoon, so it's time for attempt 28. It started off like most decent runs with a Wurmple encounter, giving me an easy early victory over Brawly to then unlock Tiger Balls. I didn't play perfectly, losing my Route 103 encounter, but I still got a Poochyena, Tailo, Makuhita, and Minun for a pretty solid roster. I was still using rare candies to do most of the grinding, but I also made it so when battle animations are turned off, I get 5 times as much experience and EVs to make EV trading a bit quicker without getting illegal results. Brandon stood no chance against my EV trained team, so after picking up an Oddish on Route 117 and doing some final preparations, I challenged Watson for the 4th time. I led with Hariyama this time, using Fake Out twice to make Watson already waste 1 Super Potion on Voltorb before finishing off a Vital Throw, and then used Bite from Mightyena, who was holding a Cherry Berry, to knock out Electrike in 2 turns. Magneton got handled by roughly the same strategy, but now also using Mightyena to take Sonic Boom, so would then always bait Shockwave, letting Marshtomp come in for free and get the KO, bringing in Manectric. That improved strategy meant that Minun still had enough HP to bait a Thunder Wave from Manectric, so after healing that with a Cherry Berry, I could lock it in with Encore. That gave Gloom 2 free turns to switch in and use Sweet Scent, so now I just had to get Marshtomp on the field before Watson could spam Howl. This is the main reason why I made sure that Mightyena took some damage earlier on. In previous attempts, I tried to drop Manectric's attack with Intimidate, only for it to immediately use Howl again, but since it now sees a kill with Shockwaves, I could safely bring in Marshtomp. Even without attack boosts, Quick Attack would still 2-shot my starter from this range, but I now knew that I was free to stay in while Watson healed, leaving Manectric at a third of its HP. All I had to do now was bring in Hariyama to deal the final blow, so to be completely safe I sacked Beautifly, giving me a free switch, and with the Cherry Berry still intact, Hariyama managed to successfully use Vital Throw, taking down Manectric, and finally getting me the 3rd badge almost 20 minutes into the video. This meant the game finally opened up a bit, letting me catch a decent amount of new Pokemon. Geodude on Route 111, Numel in Fiery Path, so I could then guarantee get a Marill on Route 112, Spinda on Route 113, and Lotad on Route 114. That did not mean it was smooth sailing though, just look at this battle against a random hiker. Magnitude's base power randomly varies between 10 and 150, so always 10 for me and 150 for the opponent. Combine that with double damage from critical hits, and a Geodude that's 8 levels lower than my Pokemon is still an enormous threat, so I can't challenge any trainer unprepared. That is of course even more the case for boss battles, with next up Maxi. His team is full of RNG moves like Sand Attack from Mightyena, and although Vital Throw from Hariyama never misses, I also needed to make sure I move first so I can't get flinched by a potential bite. It was more annoying than actually scary, just like the Zubat with Supersonic, but then there was Magnitude Camerupt. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to play around the AI's obvious move choices, letting me safely bring in a Azumarill to one-shot the Fire Ground type with Bubble Beam, giving me a relatively trivial win over Maxi. After adding Machop and Wynaut to the roster, it was time for the 4th gym leader, Flannery. Her team is easily the scariest one offensively for this challenge, with guaranteed critical overheats and magnitude 10, but she also has a glaring weakness to the infamously abundant Water type. Although I couldn't fish for Magikarp or Tentacool and my Marshall's best attack was Water Gun, a speed and special attack EV trait Azumarill was still good enough to outspeed and one-shot Flannery's first 3 Pokemon with Bubble Beam. That left just Torkoal, and although it sure is a scary ace, it's not as terrifying as Manectric. Yes, Attract could be an issue since my Azumarill is male, but it simply used Body Slam, paralyzing me to no avail because of the Hell Cherry Berry, and the second Bubble Beam made easy work of the Fire type. I was fully prepared to sack Azumarill here, but somehow I managed to get 4 badges with only a single death. This gave me access to the desert on Route 111, including the Mirage Tower where I got a Trapinch, and more importantly, the Claw Fossil. I revived this on Rosborough to get an Anorith, theoretically one of the best Pokemon for this challenge, because of Battle Armor. Even in regular Nuzlocke, it's already amazing to have an ability which makes it so you can't get crit, but here it's even better. So let's put it on the team and take on the normal gym. Norman's team is absolutely terrifying. On paper. In practice, Swallow just outspeeds and obliterates his first 3 Pokemon with her turn, because with a status condition, it gets a 50% attack boost from its ability Guts. His ace slacking is actually scary, but that's where Anorith comes into play. Fully trained in defensive EVs, it can relatively easily take a facade from the insanely powerful normal type, and then it was time to very slowly chip them down. Slacking's crazy stats get balanced out by its ability Truant, which only lets it move every other turn, and I can simply protect on the attacking turns. Once Slacking was around a third of its HP, I just switched into Swallow on the loafing turn and used one final return to take down Norman, getting me the 5th badge with still only 1 death. I had confidently crushed the last 2 gyms, my team was getting stronger with the minute, and no trainer seemed to be able to slow me down, so what could possibly stop me at this point? A Kecleon. A stupid, wild Kecleon with a guaranteed 5 hits critical Fury Swipes to take down Minun from full HP. That was a rude but necessary awakening that this is still a worst luck hardcore Nuzlocke with death lurking at every corner, and I had to remain very careful for the entire run if I wanted to be successful. So at the start of the next stream, I fully EV trade my Tentacool, evolving into Tentacruel in the process, used up my limited money to buy the TM for Ice Beam, and then challenged Winona. The newly taught Ice move easily took care of her lead Swablu, and since I had studied the Emerald Switch in AI, I knew that Altaria would come out second. Although a critical Earthquake would definitely one-shot my Poison type, the EV trading allowed it to outspeed Winona's ace and take it down with a single Ice Beam. Next up was Skarmory, which could have been annoying with Sand Attack, if not for Tentacruel's Clear Body preventing stat drops. Because of that, a second Surf could connect for the knockout, and the following Tropius was a third Ice Beam Oko of the match. Pelipper was last, so I simply switched into my Manectric on the useless Protect, and one quad effective electric move got rid of Winona's final Pokemon for the 6th badge. After some evolutions, encounters, and easy victories against Magma runs, it was time to take on Maxi, and I had not learned from that wild Kecleon. I literally did not even look at his team before challenging him, and it was bad. This might honestly be the most hacks-based team of the game, and I was fully unprepared. I already took way too much damage before getting rid of his lead Mightyena, but I had at least managed to position myself so I could safely bring in Swampert on the takedown from Camerupt and then outspeed with Surf for the one-shot. However, Crobat was a major issue. It was faster than all my Pokemon except Swallow, which couldn't survive any hit, and Crobat had Bite to always flinch or Confuse Ray to confuse my Pokemon. The only way out of this was to sack something, and this ended up being Pelipper, which just isn't that helpful compared to other water types at the moment. Like Tentacruel. Because it still had a Persian Berry equipped, I could get off one Ice Beam, and since Maxi is a bad villain who only uses Super Potions, I could also get off a second one to bring Crobat into red HP. Now I could just switch to Manectric and use Quick Attack to finish off that stupid bat, and I could call myself really lucky to have made it out of that battle with only 1 death. The Team Aqua base luckily didn't have any tricky fights and instead contained a Master Ball. You can actually get this before triggering any of the Electrode fights, which is perfect since I could then immediately use it to catch one before they could explode. All of that just so that it could boom against Tate and Liza. In Emerald, this tag team of gym leaders can be quite tricky, but Boom plus Protect is always a good way to deal some guaranteed damage. Claydol already got close to going down, and Zatu was just straight up a one-shot. With one side being weakened and forced to heal, I could brute force my way through the Lunatone with the combo of Guts Facade Swallow and Surf Tentacruel, and the exact same combo cleaned up the remaining 2 Pokemon, so that was a completely safe 7th gym battle. Next up was another maxi fight though, and this was honestly the scariest individual battle of the game. Okay, maybe besides Watson. There's just so much potential for hacks, and I can only bring 3 Pokemon since it's a multi-battle alongside Steven's Stone. Although I could use Tentacruel's Surf to get off to a good start, Steven's Metang immediately got neutralized by Swagger, confusing it. Tentacruel did get another kill on the left side while Max's Mightyena targeted Metang, but on the next turn a single takedown brought my Pokemon well below half health. If Tabitha's Mightyena had also gone for an attacking move into Tentacruel, I would have had to adjust the plan I was cooking for the Elite Four, but fortunately it just used Swagger, for which I had equipped the Persian Berry, so Surf got me a double kill on the following turn. That left only Crobat, but it's still an incredibly fast and scary Crobat. I had literally brought my former Whismur just as a sack, but then Steven's Metang snapped out of confusion, landed a big Psychic, and while I stalled the next turn with Protect, Steven finished the fight with a second Psychic. With that, Team Magma was defeated and I just had to beat Archie one final time to do the same with Team Aqua. Since I had learned from my previous mistakes, I took the effort to pre-burn Swellow to double the power of Facade, so with the additional 50% attack boost from Guts, it one-shot all of his Pokemon. Well, shit. Manectric easily cleaned up with Spark, but Swellow still would have been amazing to have for the last couple fights of the game. With arguably my hardest hitter down, it was time for defense. I was guaranteed to encounter a Spheal in Shoal Cave, which evolved into the tanky Walrein, and I picked up a Water Stone in the abandoned ship to evolve Lamprey into Ludicolo. With 1.5 hours of preparations done, it was time to take on Juan. His lead Luftus has a pretty nasty moveset with stuff like Sweet Kiss, but Manectric just outsped and one-shot it with Spark. Whiscash was no issue either, since he could safely bring in Ludicolo on an Earthquake, and gave it rain 2 character Water Ground type while healing it back to full in the process. Celio could use either Body Slam to paralyze my Pokemon or Water Pulse to confuse them, but a Sleeping Magneton with a Persian Berry solved both of those problems, so I could then get 2 kills with a Thunderbolt each. You might be wondering why I said it was time for defense when I just got 4 one-shots in a row, and the answer is on your screen right now: Kingdra. All of its moves are a major issue. Rest to heal all of its HP, Water Pulse to confuse my Pokemon, Ice Beam to freeze them, and worst of all, Double Team to make it near impossible to hit. So instead of trying to somehow outdamage Rest with moves that don't check accuracy while avoiding confusion and freeze for long enough, I had to survive through all 20 Water Pulses and 10 Ice Beams. Walrein was absolutely amazing for tanking the ice moves, and Ludicolo also kinda did its job. Yes, 15 damage from a critical Water Pulse isn't a lot, but 20 of those would still be 300 total damage, and simple math shows that that is more than Ludicolo's 130 HP. Luckily, once Kingdra had used Double Team 6 times, Walrein always baited Water Pulse, so I could waste some by going for Protect. After tanking Kingdra's final hit with Walrein, Hariyama was free to come in, ignore the evasion boost with Vital Throw, finish off Kingdra, and get me the final badge. So now it was time to prepare for the Pokemon League. I had quite a stacked roster, but there was one Emerald staple missing: Salamence. Because I previously had used a Repel while going through Meteor Falls, I could now go back with the ability to use Waterfall outside of battle and get an encounter in the highest floor, which ended up being a Solrock. It was a 50-50 chance to find Bagon, so although I didn't touch the randomness of encounters, it is quite fitting that I did not get what I wanted here. At least there was another route where I hadn't gotten my encounter yet either, and here I could catch Swablu and evolve it into Altaria, which is basically budget Salamence. Since at this point I knew what Pokemon I wanted for taking on the Pokemon League, I also knew what I didn't want. So against Wally in Victory Road, I was free to sack Sableye to then get an easy win, and after one more hour of preparations, it was time to end this challenge, win or lose. First up was the Dark-type specialist Sydney, and it was immediately time for one of the new team members to shine. Heimlich the Machamp knocked out all of Sydney's Pokemon with a single Guts boosted low kick each, and that's already one Elite Four member down. Up next was Phoebe and her Ghost types, facing off against my own Ghost type, Shups the Bayonet. Super effective Shadow Balls tore through her first 3 Pokemon, and because it was holding the experience share in the first fight, it already got to level 55, which made it exactly strong enough to one-shot Phoebe's ace as well. I did have to switch out against the Dark-type Sableye, which ended up using Double Team. I had of course come prepared though with Rain Dance Magneton, allowing Thunder to skip the accuracy check and get a clean one-shot for the second victory in the Pokemon League. The Ice-type specialist Glacia was up third, and that was another easy sweep by low-kick Machamp, not much to talk about there, so it's time to move on to Drake. Most of his Dragon types stood no chance against Tentacruel's Ice Beam, 3 of them went down with no issues, but then there is a Kingdra. It is similar to once Kingdra, but this time the 2 offensive moves are Surf and Body Slam, which can get extremely dangerous because it also has Dragon Dance to boost its attack. However, that's where Bayonet comes in. As a Ghost type, it's immune to normal type moves, and because I strategically weaken it before entering the Pokemon League, it always baits Surf. This way, I only need to tank 8 Surfs with the rest of my team, which a combination of Ludicolo, Altaria and Tentacruel let me do, so then Bayonet was free to spam the fully accurate Feint attack until Kingdra eventually went down. Only Salamence remained, and with just one more battle to go after this, I sacked Machamp for a free switch into Tentacruel, which outsped and one-shot Drake's final Pokemon. This left me with 5 Pokemon for the final battle of the game against Champion Wallace. His tanky Wailord is up first, but he's no match for Magneton's Thunderbolt, and the Gyarados that follows is no issue either. Next up was Whiscash, and I could simply do the same as against one, switching to Ludicolo on an Earthquake, and then use Giga Drain to get a one-shot. Nope, instead he one-shots me with a Hyper Beam. Time to improvise. Whiscash has to recharge on the next turn, so any of my Pokemon can take care of it, but here I mainly cared about what comes in next. I decided to bring in Tentacruel, thinking that would bring out Wallace's own Tentacruel, but because my Tentacruel resists all of its moves, he instead sent out Ludicolo. This can be a major threat with Double Team, so I brought Altaria specifically for this, since it has Aerial Ace, which always hits. Now Wallace did bring in Tentacruel, and although it's quite physically frail, Altaria's Earthquake does not kill them for full HP. Altaria truly is a budget Salamence, so I first had to sack Bayonet to get a free switch into my own Tentacruel, chip down the opposing one with return, and sack it as well. That finally allowed Altaria to finish off Tentacruel with Earthquake, leaving just my Lodic. After it got off one last Earthquake, the Dragon Flying type got obliterated by an Ice Beam, and I was truly down to my ace. 28 attempts, 9 streams, and approximately a billion calculations all led up to this moment. Magneton fired off a magnet boosted Thunderbolt, and despite what my calculations led me to believe, it was not enough. As my Lodic swept away my final Pokemon with a critical serve, I realized what went wrong. The damage calc I used already had the data of all trainers imported, including their set natures, but in these mods, the natures are not the same. In this case, my Lodic ended up having a special defense boosting nature, allowing it to barely survive and crush my dreams. So, let this be a lesson. Even if you think you have covered everything, RNG will always, and I mean truly always, find a way to screw you over. Although this beautifully tragic end will be completely ruined by just starting another run, I am not giving up on this challenge. That's why in the weeks or probably months after this video is uploaded, I'll be attempting to be the hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Platinum with the worst luck possible. Is that doable? I don't know, and that's what makes it fun. The start looks possible at least, but you'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, like, subscribe, comment and give word your soul if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time, and of course, stay alive.